Welcome to another episode of Soaring Gliders. Last 2 weeks I made some exciting UI changes where I designed an altimeter and a speedometer. In this episode I'm gonna try to fix some major texture issues that have been bothering me since the beginning of time. Welcome back. I feel totally recharged, having had a great weekend exploring recently opened shopping centres, tiling my bathroom, eating junk food and watching K-dramas. The list goes on. But now it's Monday 15th of June. I think it's time to jump back into my game. This week I'm going to try and fix the stretched grass and ground textures. These brown ground textures are literally the bane of my life. You can see how long and stretched they are. They're not meant to look like that. They should actually look more like this. So I've been doing a lot of digging and I think I found a culprit. It seems like the terrain UVs are not being mapped correctly. It seems obvious now, but it took a while to unravel my spaghetti code. This function, generate terrain UV, is how I overlay the sprite texture over the mesh. It basically loops through the height map and creates an array of points that map between the texture coordinates and the mesh vertices. I added debug functionality that basically lets you update the UV values in real time so that you can fractionally adjust the texture. And bingo! This must be it. When I adjust the UV factor in the X direction, the texture becomes less stretched and looks more and more normal. The end goal is to make the ground textures look as beautiful as the ones you see in Tiny Wings. Obviously I'm nowhere near, but I'm getting there. One thing that's been on my mind lately is that I really don't like using Visual Studio. I think it's so clunky and so inferior to VS Code, so I'm going to spend some time now to switch over to VS Code, which is lightweight and has so many cool plugins that make me feel like an actual real software developer. My favourite feature is that I can see what's been added since the latest commit, and with a single click of a button I can revert back to a clean copy of the latest commit. So good for debugging. Hey there, it's Monday now. I never got back to coding over the weekend, but I made some exciting progress this evening. So yeah, I've just been playing around with the way the UV textures are being mapped, and just look at these wavy textures. When I move these, you can see, oh look at that, that's crazy. And you can see it the same as I move the Y direction. Totally unintentional, but maybe I can incorporate it later into my game. The way I did that was I plumbed in these UV factors and had different X and Y coordinates, but I think now I need to play around with these numbers here to vary how high the textures are being mapped in the Y direction. And now it looks really good because it's scaled correctly in both the X and Y directions. It was a simple change really. I just needed to add an additional multiplier to the Y direction so that I could scale the UV coordinates in the Y direction as well. One thing that's really annoying me still is that the texture appears stretched, and I've increased the resolution of the texture, so where we have the peaks and troughs of the terrain, you can see that the texture is stretched accordingly, so it looks kind of jagged, and that's not what I want. It looks pretty weird. So I did a lot of head scratching and I came across Sam Hogan's video, which was extremely helpful. It was in his devlogs where he encountered a similar problem, not directly related, but it was a similar problem, and he basically created a texture mask shader in Unity which only rendered the texture into view where it was necessary. And that's something that I want to do because I have a piece of texture that I can have in a background, and where my texture scrolls into view, I want the texture to appear. So I basically took the code from Lyndon's tutorial on their GitHub page and put it into work on my own game, and I basically attached a shader to the ground, and I've got something weird going on. I don't quite know what's going on, but it seems to be doing something. It's just not quite what I want. You can see that when I scroll in and out, the texture looks as if it's static. And in the camera view it just looks like it's not moving at all, so this is definitely not what I want. so I need to go back to the drawing board. So I think I'm going to take a look at the solution that Sam Hogan went for in his own devlog, which fixed his texture problems. It's the weekend now, but I'm not planning on doing any coding. I've got lots to do, including shopping at IKEA, eating plenty of Swedish meatballs, and building lots and lots of IKEA furniture. So the stencil buffer shader work is actually trickier than I initially thought it was, so I'm going to shelve that for now because I'm pretty happy with how I was able to change the UV tiling effect to get the shape of the texture that I wanted. So I think I'll keep using that for now because I don't want to sink more time into getting the stencil buffer shader working. It's good to know when to give up. And on that bombshell, I think it's time to wrap up this devlog. Thanks for watching. If you've got any feedback about my game or this video, once again, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Anyways, be sure to hit that like button for that YouTube algorithm, and see you in the next one.